Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Good evening for some of you. Welcome to Tuesday Tea Time on Wednesday this week. I am in beautiful sunny California. I am in Tiburon right now, staying with my father and my stepmother. And gosh, it's beautiful here. I've been teaching in the Bay Area for the last couple of days before I head off to Portugal tomorrow. And it's tea time. I think we're at 115 episodes. Thank you for all of you guys who join me, whether you're here live or whether you watch this later. As you know, I have been through a really difficult year, but specifically in the last couple of weeks, it's been really difficult for me. And it's a little bit hard to show up for all of my normal things like tea time when I'm struggling through my own manifestations of life. But I'm here. And, I think there's a lot to be said for showing up. And I believe in it. Whether you're having a good day or a bad day, you show up. You show up and you do what it is that you need to do. So today, I thought I would talk a little bit about stories. I've just been sitting with family and chatting and telling stories, and I think stories is one of the ways that we connect best with each other. I think it's why I do tea time. It's not as official as a podcast. Maybe someday I'll get to that official podcast realm, but for now, I think the ability to tell stories and listen to stories, this is what connects us together the best. My favorite way to teach is by telling stories. And, there's that funny outline. People say that pretty much every story on earth is something along the lines of a cat gets stuck in a tree, rocks get thrown at the cat and its life gets worse, and then the cat gets rescued. And I think there's more to it than that, but it is funny when we think about it. Most stories are a problem we had, and then an intensification of that problem until we had the solution, and then how that solution came about. I agree, George. Tea is much better than Tide Pods. And then, we have the difference between story and comedy, as George put it so well there. A story usually has a poignant ending, something that seems valuable, something that we want to think about or hold on to or mull over. And comedy is different. Comedy is where you're left hanging a little bit. There's a punchline. There's something that makes you just uncomfortable enough that you have to laugh it off. And laughter feels good. I was having a great conversation this week with a friend of mine, Mona. Thank you, Mona. And this conversation has progressed to a lot of people I've talked to this week, but there's this idea that there's two things in life that really bring horses a quality of life. And that is, one, a sense of predictability. And two, a sense of some sort of control, some sort of ability to control one's outcome. And I think this is very true with horses, but I'm all about the spectrum. And so if on one side of the spectrum we have predictability, on the other side of the spectrum we have novelty and unpredictability. And the question is, where's the balance? Because nothing is static. And this is something that I think is really important in stories. I gave you that funny outline. Cat gets stuck in a tree, rocks get thrown at the cat, it gets worse, and then we rescue the cat. That's the predictable story outline. All of us recognize a story when we hear it because of its predictability. But the reason we listen to a story is not the predictability, it's the novelty. What are the things that we haven't thought of? What are the things that are novel, new, interesting? And so, you know, this is true in storytelling. It's also true in horse training. There has to be some sense of predictability, that the horses know what's going to happen next. This makes them comfortable enough that they want to stay there, that they want to try it, that they want to be part of it. But if it's too familiar, it's not interesting. And so then you have a sense of novelty. What's new, what's interesting, what's entertaining. If it's too novel, if it's not familiar enough, the horse will not want to stay for that training. If I tell exactly the same story with no novelties, you're going to get tired of it. You're not going to stay. You're going to find some reason that you have to be somewhere else or something else you have to do. So we have this spectrum between predictability and novelty that makes us want to partake, whether it's in a story that someone's telling, or whether it's in a thing that we're learning, or a relationship we're building. And so that's been a really interesting way for me to think about it this week as I'm teaching. Can I share a new concept or a new theory with a sense of predictability? People have a familiarity with how it's being taught, with how it's being delivered. And they have some sense of control of the teaching because they're allowed to ask questions, engage me in conversation, interject their perspective so that they have some control over the outcome of this conversation. And then lastly, there's just enough novelty that they don't know everything. And that ability to not know everything is what sparks the enjoyment in life. What I teach over and over again is it's the 5 senses that make us feel alive. But if we get overwhelmed by our 5 senses, we want to run and hide. So we need enough predictability that it's not overwhelming. But we need enough novelty that we feel alive. And, you know, I wanted to talk about stories, but this really quickly, because I'm a horse trainer, this really quickly bridges into the story of a conversation between horse and human. So when we're talking to our horses, how much predictability makes them feel safe and secure and comfortable? How much novelty is interjected in that so that they feel alive and awake and interested, stimulated in a good way, not an overwhelming way. And then, you know, a sense of humor is about leaving things on a little bit of a sharp note so that there is the participation of the audience. There is the laughter or the bonding over the shared momentary discomfort that comes from comedy. Comedy isn't comfortable, but it is uncomfortable in a predictable enough way that nobody wants to run away. And we can have that kind of comedy with horses too, where we leave things hanging a little bit and let the horse finish the story, let the horse finish the conversation, let the horse discover something without scaffolding the learning process enough for us to teach them everything they need to know. So some people like to have a sense of comedy in their work, okay? And that's the place where we discover things together at the end of the story. Others really like that very poignant piece where you just listen and whoever's delivering the story scaffolds it for you so it's very comfortable all the way through, leaving you with some sense of poignancy to ponder afterwards. I think really good horse training is like really good storytelling. George says it's even better with burros. They're like the Charlie Chaplins of the equine world. I keep hearing that, George. People keep telling me I need to get burros at some point. They have a large amount of comedy and, you know, their punchlines are good. when you work with burros, it's not really like you're delivering a scaffolding of predictable training. It's a little bit more like you leave things hanging on the edge and see what they come back with. And, you know, I'm throwing that out there. I don't have burros. I don't know for sure, but I do think from what I've known from the students that I've worked with that burros do tend to have a sense of humor. And so maybe we can think about that a little bit when we are in training with our horses. What kind of a story is happening between horse and human? Is there enough familiarity in the story that it's comfortable? Is there enough novelty that it wakes the senses up? And then do you leave it hanging a little bit so the horse really wants more? You know, that saying that I have, leave them wanting more, not less. That's where comedy comes in. Or do you really leave them with a sense of satisfaction where they go, oh, yeah, that was good. We can just settle and just be at peace with that conversation we had. So those are my thoughts for today. I am headed off to Portugal tomorrow. So next week, Tea Time will be from Portugal, probably on Tuesday. If you have something that you'd like me to talk about, please let me know. I keep an ongoing list of suggestions. And I look forward to seeing you guys each week for Tea Time.